Should I do an Abraham Lincoln documentary? Most of the time when I make one of those, there's always the belief that there's a purpose for it in the general sense of a lack of material in video form of that person, to the degree that I would like. I know it sounds pretty nebulous. Let me elaborate. Like doing the LBJ one was strictly, I just didn't think he received the attention that he deserved for being one of the most, in my opinion, consequential presidents, period. And with the Nixon one, that was done mostly not because I think people don't remember, but because they only ever bring up Watergate, when he had a distinguished career before that and afterward with his retirement. And then with the FDR one, that was mainly because out of the three greatest presidents, according to historians, I basically had noticed that there was a cultural, what's the way of putting it, a lack of cultural relevance for him compared to Lincoln and Washington, where people, who aren't into history, right, who aren't into any of this stuff, they have some basic knowledge of Washington and Lincoln. Um, you know, People can associate Lincoln with the Civil War, even if they really don't know anything else about him. I digress. So it really was just a matter of do these serve a purpose of being content relating to something I think more people should be aware of, or that people are not talking about as much as I think they should. And with Lincoln, while I would be interested sort of in exploring the earlier parts of his life, him losing his mother and sister at a young age and becoming a lawyer and being in the House of Representatives very briefly, and losing 8 elections before winning the presidency. I guess it's like this: even if there's an interest in possibly covering it, there's not a burning desire of, like, I need to do this, I must make this. I think this would be such great relevance, and I this is like a compulsion. Like I want this to be a thing that exists. It's on the lower end of the of the, I don't want to say the itinerary, but just of those priorities on my end. In fact, I would say he's, if I were to like go through people from the Civil War era, or at least like that 1850s, 1860s like period, right, to possibly do a documentary on, I don't even think he would be in the top 10. Like on the abolitionist side, you have people like John Brown, Frederick Douglass, even Thaddeus Stevens or Charles Sumter. And then on the Confederate side, you have Jefferson Davis, Robert E. Lee, who is considered by a lot of historians to be one of the greatest U.S. generals in all of history. Stonewall Jackson. You get the idea that there's other people from that period that I don't think get as talked about or as well known as I believe they should be, that I'd rather make one. I mean, hell, I've been toying over the last, I think, 4 or 5 months on doing a documentary on Grant, because Ron Chernow's this is his 2017 book. I really like it. I know Gene Edward Smith, the author of FDR's biography, is also wrote a book on Grant. So I'd be more interested probably in doing the second Republican president than the first one, because he's someone who I think accomplished much, is talked about very little, or not to the degree that I believe he should be. And there has been something of a resurgence in recent years, like a changing of the guard, right? Like sort of, what's the way of putting it, people waking up more and more to that. But I just don't see the value of doing Lincoln. Like, everybody already knows who he is. They might not know as many things about him as I, again, think they should, but I guess is it really, is that something that they could not learn on their own time, or would be barred from them if I don't do it? It's just, I start to kind of ask those questions. And it also comes down to like time, right? Because this year specifically, I wanted to finish the Roosevelt, Nixon, and Johnson ones. The Roosevelt one is the one I've been mostly working on over the last month or so, just in the background, not really talking about it. Um, so yeah, it's just a matter of like the things I can get to and want to do. He would not be a priority, even if I like him, just like most people probably do. Um, and it's so crazy because I have my own ideas of how I do it, but I don't think there's like if I did all the other ones on some list of like 20 presidents that I wanted to make a documentary on, and I never got around to Lincoln, I don't think the world would be like missing anything. You know, if it's someone like Grant or Wilson or I guess to lesser degrees the Roosevelts or Johnson, where there are people who don't even know who they are or that they existed, right? In the country that they impacted so much. That's where I start to kind of run into the desire to like do other ones instead. But again, anything is possible. I'll probably revisit the idea as we get further into the year because I think around the mid part, like around June, is when I'll have more of this stuff written out and then be able to turn my attention to anything else I'd like to see done. But I don't object to doing it. It's just a matter of all the different ones I could do, right? And the realism of you're probably not going to be able to do every single one that you would like, just by virtue of time, and you never know what could happen. But yeah, he's someone I like. I just don't think that if I didn't do him, we would really be missing anything. Whereas with other ones, there's so little material about them that I'm more drawn to making content relating to them for that reason.